start again. Hi everyone, welcome all of you come to council today. And unfortunately, today our chairman George can't attend this council meeting. So today we have to run the election for choose chairman, temporary chairman, just for tonight. So if anyone interested in want to put forward yourself, just come here, talk with us. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah, good.
Hi. Oh, does it still? Okay. Hi, everyone. I am your postgraduate officer, and I've been in steering. I've been basically submitting a lot of motions. You probably have enough of my face at this point, but yeah, I think I know how the whole process works, so I'd like to put myself forward.
Is anyone else want to put yourself forward? Okay. Okay. So if anyone know, if no one put yourself forward, now Chirag will today's chairman, temporary chairman.
So NUSU Council, council literature, so you can just say, welcome everyone to council, hello, how are you? Reminding everyone if they need any help during voting or getting on their box, just pop their hand up, someone will come see them.
Okay.
And then we'll go through everything as we go, so we just need to get Zoom up for you.
Okay. Let me just start up Zoom then. Is it just join?
Yeah, just join. 817 0864 6985.
Let's change this to. Okay.
And then just turn your camera off and mute yourself. Yeah. Cool. And then these are all the online, so you can see a hand in. And you'll also see the presentation there.
Okay.
I'll bring my chair a little closer.
Yeah. So, yeah. Ooh, that's quite heavy. Okay. Pretty good. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to council, especially for my first as a temporary chair. Just as a reminder, if you need any help with voting, please put your hand up, even on Zoom, just so we know, and somebody will come by to sort that out. Should I get started with the agenda? Or do I need to say? That's good. Okay. Moving on with
So it's the minutes
okay.
You just need to ask if everyone has any corrections or objections with anything that's being recorded.
Okay. Moving on to the second one, which is minutes of the previous meeting. If there's any corrections you can have, you can raise it at this point. If you have any follow-up questions from the last meeting, it is now your time to ask it. Okay.
They've
Passed.
Time we go.
Moving on to election of vacant councillor position. We have two positions available for elections if anyone would like to put their names forward. The first one is the Student Parents, Guardians and Carers Officer.
Just something to read
So the Parents and Carers and Guardians Officer. This officer is heavily involved in the development of the Students' Union and the university provision for students with dependents. So with regards to helping support these students with making adaptations to their teaching where necessary, obtaining necessary funding, and offering advice, guidance, and information. Please note, the role holder must identify as a parent, carer, or guardian. Would anyone like to put themselves forward for this position? Okay. The second position available is the Marginalized Gender Officer. I'm just going to read out what they do. So the Marginalized Gender Officer exists to support students who identify as belonging to the marginalized gender community. They work to ensure that issues regarding discrimination and exclusion against students in this community are accurately represented within the union. Again, the officer themselves must self-identify as belonging to a marginalized gender. If anyone would like to put their names forward, now is the time. Okay. Is this just a minute? Okay. We had no objections to any of the committee's minutes, so steering committee, so those have passed. Do I bang it? Okay. We haven't received any report from scrutiny committee or the disciplinary committee, and therefore that is done. Moving on to State of the Union report, I would like to invite the President to please provide a State of the Union.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chirag. Yes, so for those of you who are unaware of what State of the Union is, it's just a chance for the sabbatical officers to update you on some of the work that we've been doing over the past few weeks. So I'll start with me. So I've been meeting with local MPs to discuss the issues that are affecting students, particularly around the housing crisis and cost of living. I've also been working on an idea to get emergency food vouchers distributed across schools. So the idea would be that we would provide catering vouchers, which would be available at all schools across the university. I've presented the idea to the University Cost of Living Group. They've given their initial endorsements. So I'll be now working on a paper to bring that towards the Student Disbursement Fund so that we can get the project funded. I've also been working on a paper to look into getting a platform called Rate Your Landlord to Newcastle. So this would allow students to rate their personal renting experience and allowing them to provide other students with guidance on how they found their personal renting experience at a property. So look into that, and I'm also looking to meet with Northumbria to discuss that. And yeah, I've been meeting with local law firms as well, alongside our Student Advice Centre staff. And we've managed to come to agreement with one of the local law firms so that they're going to provide our staff at the Student Advice Centre with some basic legal support in terms of answering some questions. And this will help the Student Advice Centre staff to be able to help more students as well, which is great. In terms of what the other SABs have been up to, I'll start with Chirag. So Chirag has done a HAS school-wide writing retreat for postgraduate students in their 4th year. He's also held 2 postgraduate industry networking coffee events, which have been quite successful, and he's been meeting with MPs to discuss PGT and PGR issues. Moving on to Lulu. So Lulu's took part in key discussions with the university on the new education strategy that they're planning on releasing. She's also in the process of organising the TEAS Awards, the Teaching and Excellence Awards, and is representing student interests at University Senate, and is planning to lobby the university on the idea of to consider the sense of belonging that students have to the university and how we can improve that sense of belonging on campus. Moving on to Lucy, the Welfare and Equalities Officer. So Lucy's been meeting with local MP Catherine McKinnell to address key student issues such as the cost of living crisis and the housing shortage. And she's represented the student union in the Tyne and Wear Delegates Assembly, voting on their priorities for this year. And this now includes cost of living, housing, and racial equality in education. Moving on to Kimiko, the AU officer. Kimiko has attended the NUS event, Our Manifesto, Our Future. She's also engaged with clubs to increase awareness and encourage spectatorships. And me and Kimiko have been working together to pick the University Challenge team. So we've picked the team, and it's now being posted on social media, and we're looking to hopefully get some coaching for them as well. And then moving on to Alex, the activities officer. So Alex has been planning the Festival of Culture, which starts today. So the first event is actually tonight, and it's for Hanukkah. She's also been working on the sustainability campaign, which is doing quite well. She's hosted a charity shop tour and a swap shop, and is currently planning for Sustainability Week in February. Kimiko and Alex have also relayed student feedback from our big conversation at last council. And she's taken that feedback alongside Kimiko to NUS to our Manifesto Our Futures event. And she's also worked with Leo, the disabilities officer, in terms of meeting with Sandy Alden from Student Health and Wellbeing to discuss disability support for international students. Next we have Gabby, the student media officer. So Gabby's obtained funding to buy new equipment for the NSR studio through the Student Disbursement Fund. Gabby's also worked on wellbeing initiatives with Lucy, the welfare officer, on the wellbeing and support campaign group, and she's begun planning student elections for next term, and has printed 5 successful papers for this year, 4 of which were done by the full editorial team. That's the State of the Union, and I wish you all happy holidays.
Thank you very much, Sean. Please. Does anyone have any objections to what Shah just said, or to the State of the Union report? Okay, that is considered accepted. I would just bang the gavel. Accepted. Okay. Just to, I would now request all the sabbatical officers to please come onto the podium. Just to let you know, I will be answering any questions you have for me from the chair. If anyone has any objections to that, please tell me now. Okay, great. If anyone wants to ask any questions to the sabbatical officers on what they've been doing so far, now is your time. Would anyone like to ask them a question here or online? Just going to give it a few seconds. Would the sabbatical officers please introduce yourself and just say what your role is?
Hi, I'm Kimiko. I'm the AU officer.
Hi, I'm Lucy. I'm the Welfare and Equality Officer. Hi, I'm Alex. I'm the Activities Officer.
Slate. Hi, I'm Gabby, and I'm your Student Media Officer.
Hi, I'm Lulu. I'm your Education Officer.
I don't think I need to introduce myself anymore.
Okay. And that's Chirag. He's our postgraduate officer.
If you have any questions, please just ask them now, here or online.
I have one for Gabby, student media officer. Well, so I hosted the student media officer debates that was 2 years ago. But of course, one of the things we talked about was like sustainability, especially when it comes to the printing of the papers. So I'm wondering is like this year, like for example, last year I don't think anything was done regarding the papers, whatever was left over. So is there any changes to that practice this year?
Yeah, there is. So 2 things have happened since last year. The first thing is changing to a fortnightly print. That was part of the sustainability efforts, because printing every week, we found that we were printing like our normal amount of papers, but people weren't picking them up as fast as we were printing them, so we cut them down. We also cut down the size of the prints at the start of last year, or before September 2022, we used to print 1,500. We now only print 1,000 copies of the paper, and that seems to have worked a little bit better. We don't tend to have as many surplus anymore. In terms of the surplus, we have been recycling them like alongside NUSU's recycling schemes in the same way they recycle things. And also our papers get used for internal arts events quite a lot of the time, like if that's collaging or just like laying down for like protection of tables and stuff to get reused. So we're trying our best to find ways to like reuse the papers and not produce as much waste as previously.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Please take a seat. Do I ask the liberation officers to come in? I would now ask the liberation officers to please come over to the podium, introduce yourself, and yeah, just okay.
You want to go first?
Would you like to introduce yourselves?
You got mic.
Oh, sorry, I did not see you. Hi, sorry, is this on? Hello?
Give us.
Hello, yeah, it's on now. I'm Leo and I'm the disability officer.
Hi everyone, I'm Jonathan and I'm the Ethnic Diversity Officer, formerly BAME Officer.
Hello, I'm Albania International Students Officer.
And I'm Tom, I'm the LGBTQ+ officer.
Does anyone have any questions to our liberation officers on what they've been up to so far, or anything that you guys have an interest in, here or online? Just raise your hand and okay.
I have a question for Jonathan. What have you been doing for the Festival of Culture?
Well, I mean, I only joined 2 meetings so far because we had 2 meetings. But yeah, so the Festivals of Culture is headed by our activities officer, Alex, and the first event will be today at 6:30 p.m., which is for Hanukkah event. So everyone, please do go and join that later. As for myself, I'm also involved in that committee, and I'll be planning ahead for the Lunar New Year that will be happening in February. Yeah, we have some events going on. You'll probably see me going to say 新年快乐 in a few months. But yeah, do stay tuned to that. It'll be in February, and we have all the announcements and dates out. We'll also be celebrating Holi, Ramadan, and Cinco de Mayo. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Does anyone else have any questions to our liberation officers? Okay, liberation officer, would you like to give an update on what you guys have been up to so far? It is optional.
I can go through what I've done real quick. I've got it written down anyway. Okay, so I won't read my full report because it's a bit on the long side, but some things I've gotten up to in the last few months, I've been focusing a lot on improving awareness around disability as well as improving accessibility. So I've been doing a lot to try and get feedback from students on what can be improved. And my document with all my notes has just died on me. I've also been attending some meetings with sort of disability services and such with the sabbatical officers on improving sort of disability support and improving staff awareness surrounding disability. And I also worked on a disability awareness workshop last month with the Disability, Mental Health and Neurodiversity Society, which will hopefully be running a repeat of during refresher training for committees in January. It has been confirmed.
Wait. Okay, never mind. All right. Hi everyone. So when I pitched myself, I did not run. When I pitched myself for this role last year, I promised 3 things. Firstly is to work hand in hand with the societies. In that aspect, I'm happy to share that I worked with the Afro-Caribbean Society in launching a Black Engineering Network, and I'm also sitting on the committee for that to ensure that it's a functioning one. And secondly, we also had the Angklong booth within the Newcastle University Student Union that was held in conjunction with World Angklong Day, and yeah, that was done in conjunction with the Indonesian Society. Secondly is to recognize the intersectionality of my roles with other areas, for example, like international students and also school reps. I've held conversations with Inclusive Newcastle on ways that we can better support the EDI reps within each faculties. And also the Indonesian Society example is just another example of how I'm working with the international students here. And thirdly is to increase the representation on campus, which is why I changed the term of BAME officer to ethnic diversity. I believe it reflects more inclusive language. I've also promoted the BAME Community Fund on the social media pages. You all can take a look at the videos. And then there's also more plans to spotlight different cultures on campus. Moving forward, I have more conversations lined up with Inclusive Newcastle. I will also be taking part in a presentation on February to recommend measures to make the student mental health services on campus more inclusive. And then, yep, there's of course the Festival of Culture thing I'm doing. My email still haven't changed, but it's bame.union@ncl.ac.uk. If there's any suggestions or anything you want to get in touch, please feel free to drop me a message. Thank you.
So very briefly, I organized two Freshers Week events for international students. Also, I looked into whether there's an alternative for international students to do their exams in their home countries, which it turns out that there's no such alternative, it's only for receipts. And I have also worked on the access and participation plan. Thank you.
Hi, I won't bore you too much because I know we're doing the officer report later on. But mainly, what I've been up to is improving the welfare side of things. I've been looking in the Cameron support provided and drawing plans of what could be done. There was also an idea that in my head about a hardship fund that I'm hoping to bring up to Student Summit in March, I think it is. Also joined the APP group, and that's, I would say, was one of the bigger achievements of me, as I raised the LGBTQ plus students as a risk group that university is looking into in ways that they could help them and make sure that they have equal opportunities as the rest of the students. And I would say that's it, mainly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Liberation Officers. Please have a seat. Okay, now we're moving on to the officers' reports and executive committee minutes. We haven't received any objections and they will be considered as accepted. With regards to the sabbatical officer end-of-term reports, there has been no objections and therefore they will also be considered to be accepted. The Liberation Officer and NUSU Chair's end-of-term reports have also come in and there has been no objections and therefore they are considered passed. Okay, moving on to the motions. We have a business motion, which is particularly about rewording outdated phrasing in the student election regulations. So if you remember a few years ago, we had a motion come in which was particularly aimed to restrict the printed materials. But there was a section in there which said that beyond 2022, if there is no pandemic, which there isn't anymore, then the printed publicity will be back in effect. And since it has technically ended, therefore this phrasing is outdated, and that's what this business motion aims to remove. And since there has been no objections, therefore this has also considered passed. Moving on to a constitutional motion, it is the introduction of a working class liberation officer. I would like to invite the proposer to please give us an wording of the motion itself.
Hi, so this motion has kind of come from quite a lot of research that one of our staff members have been doing, which is all about representation and looking at the structure that we have in NUSU. And a kind of recommendation that came from that research project was the introduction of a working class liberation officer. So I'm presuming you've all read the motion, but I just want to highlight a few key things. So from the research that was done through a survey, 11.5% of those respondents of this survey self-identified as working class, which was the third largest category behind marginalised genders and LGBTQ plus students. Also, from this research project, we looked at the wider research from national higher education, and part of this A 2023 survey by Wonky revealed that students affected most by the cost of living difficulties show multiple indicators of a lower sense of belonging at university, which includes less willing to engage with support and activities from the Students' Union. Also, numbers from students on the Partners Programme, which is a university scheme, that has increased with 5.8% of home undergrad students on the programme this year, compared to 2.9 from 2018, so we've seen a considerable increase. Similarly, other student unions have working class liberation officers. This includes Imperial College London, University of York and Durham, Oxford and Cambridge as well. They all have working class networks. So NUSU believes a large percentage of working class students live locally in the northeast and commute to Newcastle University. So students who live at home instead of in student accommodation or shared housing with other students often feel isolated from student life. So Council believes that working class liberation officer best describes who this officer is intended to represent, including both local and non-local students who feel marginalised at Newcastle University due to socio-economic disadvantage, which also includes care experience and estranged students. So one of the resolves is to create a working class liberation officer for the academic year of 2024/2025, which will then be elected in the March 2024 elections. So the criteria for this role will be to self-identify as working class, and the role would adhere to the existing liberation officer job description.
If anyone has any questions to Lucy about this particular motion, now is the time. Yes, Leo.
I just wanted to ask for clarification on one point, because there's a bit talking about how the working class students officer would also represent care experience and estranged students. So how does that work kind of logistically, if that makes sense? Because, I mean, I imagine it would be perfectly possible to have care experience but not be working class, and likewise be working class but not be care experienced, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I mean, there's loads of ways people define themselves as working class. So I think with this, we've kind of tried to encapsulate all the ways people can identify as this liberation officer. So I know it's like very tricky, but that's kind of the thing going forward.
Jonathan?
Yeah, question to just build off from that, because you said there are many ways one would classify themselves as working class. For example, our existing liberation officer roles, it just says if you are from the ethnic minority community, you can run from this. If you are from the disabled community, you can run for that. So what are the parameters for running for a working class officer? I believe we should set more hard definitions.
Yeah. So kind of what we're kind of basing this on is a definition from the Class Act, which is from Cambridge. So the kind of definition, I'll read it out now, it's kind of what we're basing it on is, we represent, support and advocate for all students who have faced any kind of social, educational, cultural or economic disadvantage. This includes lots of different things, from identifying as working class, low income, to state comprehensive educated or first generation. Also includes care leavers, estranged students, and all those with unstable accommodation or experience of homelessness. So that's kind of, from the research, that's kind of what we based this kind of title on. But yeah, I don't know if that helps.
Does that answer your question, Jonathan? Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay. Lucy, would you like? Is there anyone else who would like to speak for this motion? Sorry about that. Is there anyone who is against this motion? Speak against this motion, that is. Okay, is there anyone who wants to speak for this motion? Okay, well, let's go straight to voting then. Okay. Votes are open now. If anyone has any trouble, please put your hands up and someone will come assist you. Okay, closing the vote now. Okay, we now have a working class liberation officer. Thank you very much. Moving on to the ordinary motions. The first one is motion for Students' Union to sign the NTVO fossil-free investment agreement. I would like to ask the proposer to please speak a little bit about what the motion is about.
Do I have to read the motion out?
Just explain.
No, lovely. I'm just gonna. Right. So, yes, we've submitted a motion for the Students' Union to sign the NCVO Fossil Free Investment Agreement, which basically asks us to confirm that we will make no investments in fossil fuels, to commit to not investing in fossil fuels in the future, to acknowledge the impact of climate change, and to support the voluntary sector's commitment to divesting from fossil fuels and supporting the climate change movement. So last year we had a motion for a fossil-free student union, and it passed, but it didn't include the Students' Union divesting from fossil fuels. However, the Students' Union has already divested from the fossil fuel industries. We don't have any investments in fossil fuels, and we just like to keep it that way to be in line with our sustainability goals. So the motion wouldn't exactly change anything right now, but it would urge us to continue doing what we're doing. And in short, we submitted this because we want to acknowledge that climate change is something that's happening and it's got a devastating impact on the planet. And divesting from the fossil fuel industry, it not only promotes a decrease in carbon emissions, but it also allows our Students' Union to fulfill our sustainability pledges and continue advocating for our students who are very much against climate change. And this motion is also backed by the Extinction Rebellion Society. So.
Might want to still hold it if someone asks a question.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Alex. If anyone has any questions with regards to the motion itself, now is the time. Please raise your hands and we'll go one by one. Okay. Thank you so much, Alex.
Can we have a support speech?
After. If anyone would like to speak against this motion, please step forward. Okay. If anyone would like to speak for this motion, please step forward.
Hi, yeah, so I'm Ella. I'm the co-president of the Extinction Rebellion Society. As a society centred around social and ecological justice, we agree that endorsing this agreement promotes sustainable investment in line with student ideals. This motion, to ensure that we continue to divest from fossil fuels, creates a culture of social responsibility within academia. And signing this agreement demonstrates that the Students' Union is striving for positive change and a more sustainable future.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. Last call, if anyone wants to speak against this motion, please step forward. Okay, voting will open in a few short seconds. Voting is open. If anyone has any problems, please raise your hand and someone will come. Has everyone voted? Okay, voting closes now. A majority win, the motion has passed. Moving on to the next motion, which is... Oh, sorry. Yeah. We need to do that. Too fast. Good. Okay. Moving on to the next motion, which is reorganizing the misaligned EDI spaces for Faculty of Medical Sciences and the wider university. I would like to ask the proposer to please speak a little bit about what the motion is.
Hey guys, so I'm Viv, I'm the proposer of the motion. I want to start with a quick apology. I was at a Christmas party last night, so I'm a bit rough, so bear with me. So essentially the idea behind this is that I joined a working neurodivergent group as part of the FMS, and initially we were looking to try and find a low sensory space for people who might be overstimulated and need a spot where they can decompress. Main issue is that there are EDI rooms that are available, however they're multi-purpose spaces. They are for breastfeeding mothers, for prayer and reflection, as well as also for decompression, and I think we can all probably agree that these requirements are all very different. I personally wouldn't want to be the one having the conversation with someone about what's more important, mental health, childcare, or faith. So, yeah, as part of this neurodivergent group, there are staff and students who are within FMS who are looking to improve the conditions for those with neurodivergent diagnoses. They've been told that they need to book spaces for decompression if they can't actually get into any of these EDI rooms, and that's things like meeting rooms or library spaces, which don't really work as the requirements can often be quite immediate and the rooms aren't always available. Within this group as well, there are a few people with young children, and they have said that they actively wouldn't use these spaces on the basis that they would feel very uncomfortable interrupting someone, for example, praying. Additionally, a low sensory space with low light for those with ADHD, for example, wouldn't seem like a practical space for someone to then also be able to breastfeed, where they might want better visibility. So ultimately, the belief here is that though trying to amalgamate these spaces, the university is perhaps not really taking into account any of the individual requirements, and so inherently wasting these spaces by not encouraging anyone to actually use them. As I am the rep for the Biosciences Institute, I've very much spent the majority of my time focusing this motion around the FMS. However, I do believe that this probably does fall into the wider net of university needs to ensure that everyone is having their requirements met. And so my hope would be that if this motion passes, we can facilitate conversations with the Student Union and FMS to more appropriately align these spaces to be best fit, and as such provide hopefully a model for assessing this across the university and having this requirement employed university-wide.
Okay. Thank you so much, Whip. If anyone has any questions about this motion, please raise your hand. Leo?
How would you feel about expanding this space so that it's not just a space for neurodivergent students specifically, but also sort of disabled students in general? So if someone, say with PTSD, is having a flashback, needs a quiet space, someone with GAD is having an anxiety attack, needs a quiet space.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's important that we're making sure we're meeting as many needs as possible, and certainly I think really the primary aim of this conversation is to ensure that what we're trying to facilitate is people who actually require these spaces being involved in those conversations. I think the big problem with this is that no one who actually fit into any of these categories was asked about how this space should be set up. So ultimately now we have a space that has a lot of very, very different needs being lumped in together.
Okay. Yeah.
I was just going to ask, I hear what you're saying, but are you looking for more like each separate space would be used for one thing, or more for each sense?
I mean, I think, again, like I said, I think the conversation needs to be had as to understanding what spaces each person in these individual requirements is needed. However, I think at the moment, certainly for the space that they've set up, they've put these very much three requirements that this space can be used for, and I think ultimately there's a lot of spaces within FMS that are very much underutilized. I think there's a whole variety of common rooms and things that are all next to cafes, and no one actually uses any of those spaces. So I think, yeah, there's a conversation to be had. I think we do need to perhaps look at how we separate these and make them more aligned to the specific requirement, but yeah, hopefully I can answer that.
Does anyone else have any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you, Viv. Is there anyone who would like to speak against this motion? Is there anyone who would like to speak for this motion in support? Leo?
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just going to shift so I'm not blocking Chirag off from the rest of this room. No, okay. No, I turned it off and then on again because I clicked it by accident. No, this motion sounds great. I think it's something we really, really need. From the conversations I've held with neurodivergent, mentally ill, and disabled students, there's a lot of demand for these kind of spaces. All students deserve the right to sort of exist in dignity. No one should be reduced to sobbing in the bathroom or like breaking down publicly on the floor. And unfortunately, without these kind of spaces, that is the situation a lot of students have been put in, and that's not a situation anyone should deserve to be put in. I know there's sort of movements for this to occur in SNES at the moment, but that's being done entirely voluntarily by members of staff and myself actually in our spare time. So it would be great if we could sort of put this in a formal structure, integrated into sort of pre-existing jobs, so that there's more support for it, because I know at the moment trying to make any of those kind of spaces when you don't sort of have like this kind of formalized support behind you is a bit of a nightmare. There's a lot of issues with the state's funding. Yeah, so I think this absolutely should go through. This is something that we really need, not just in FMS, but in every part of the university and the Students' Union.
Thank you very much, Leo. Does anyone else want to speak for this motion? Alex?
I just wanted to say that I agree with everything that Leo said, and I think that it is going to be very valuable for neurodivergent students and any other disabled students to have that space, because university can get very overwhelming at times, and you know, you have to force them to make space for you, and I think it's good that we are.
Thank you, Alex. Is there anyone who would like to speak against this motion? This is the last call. Okay. Voting should be open in a few seconds. Voting is now open. It's not showing.
Please could you leave this mic on the mic stand just so that it stops falling down? If you need a mic, as you've seen previously, Connor has one that he can give to you to hold. Sorry, guys.
Voting is open now. Please go ahead. Has everyone finished voting? If anyone hasn't, please just raise your hand. Okay, thank you very much. Voting is now closed. What is that? There we go. The motion has passed. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to the next thing, which is election for positions selected by council. We have a few places available on the few committees that we have. These include the Scrutiny Committee, Disciplinary Committee, Welfare, Campaign and Liberations Executive, and Steering Committee. I'll just start with Scrutiny Committee. Would anyone like to put their name forward for the Scrutiny Committee? You can just raise your hand or just please come forward to Connor. There's just one position available. Okay, thank you. Moving on to the disciplinary committee. We have 6 places available. If anyone would like to put their names forward, please raise your hands or step forward to Connor. Yeah, okay. Moving on to the Welfare Campaigns and Liberation Executive. We have 4 places available. If anyone would like to put their names forward. Okay, moving on to the steering committee. We have 2 places available. If anyone would like to put their names forward. So steering is, I'm just going to explain a little bit about steering because I'm really passionate for that one. I'm kidding, but I'll just give a little bit of brief explanation. Steering is essentially you check if the motions that come to council are right. So basically, if the wording is right, everything's in the right place, just to make sure that it is relevant to council before it comes here. That's what steering committee does. We meet a few times before council itself, and we make sure everything's good. If anyone would like to put their names forward, please step up to Connor or just raise your hands. Would you like to please introduce yourself and just say why you want to be on steering?
Hello everybody, my name is Jaden. The last time I was up here, I was getting into some other committees, I believe. That's been fun. I've not been called to any meetings yet. I believe one I missed because they just didn't give me an email. So that's unfortunate. Anyways, I decided to join steering. 1, because this has been up here since the very first council meeting, and I really think we need to start moving things along just a bit faster now. And 2, I'm deeply interested in learning more about how to submit motions and writing them properly. And I believe joining the committee that ensures that happens will just give me a good experience. Yeah, I will also be wearing a dinosaur costume one day in the student council, so I can push that it is a very fun thing to do. Thank you.
Just a moment, just a moment. If anyone has any objections to Jaden being in steering committee, please speak now. Okay, perfect. Welcome to steering committee. We're moving on to student notices, so if anyone has anything they would like to share, now is your time. Please step forward. Yeah. It could be anything really, research, socials that you might be throwing. It could be anything. So if you'd like to share something, now's the time. Yeah, Leo.
This might be both of us actually, but this might be 3 of us actually, but 3 of your liberation officers are currently sat on the Access and Participation Plan Student Collaborative Group, which I think is a very long name, but we're currently reaching out to the wider student community to hear your voices on what support you'd like written into the next AKP to be put forwards in 2025. This is essentially just a framework that informs sort of equality, diversity, inclusivity practices going on in the university to make sure that everyone has equal access and participation in education, is the name we suggest. So I'm personally currently trying to gather more opinions on what sort of support students would like to see in terms of progression to postgraduate study and graduate level employment. If you've got anything about that, please feel free to come speak to me, and I can make sure it's brought up. Leo, you want to add on if you're doing it?
Yeah.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, it's fine. What Leo said, plus I'm doing personal tutoring. So if anyone has any opinions or feel like it could be improved in any way, just please reach out to me either via email, as in person right now, or just any kind of way. Thank you.
Yeah, if you wanted to reach out to me by email, my email is to.union@ncl.ac.uk.
there anyone else who'd like to share something? Yes? Do you need a mic?
So, yeah, it is voted for an amphibian pond last year, and here is some updates for it. So, Student Council motion passed last year for pond project, and meetings held with the Grounds Manager and Ethics and Environment Officer to discuss the project. So Drummond Quad identified as potential location due to existing biodiversity support and space project works requests submitted for the project, awareness and location checks. But however, full investigation required for feasibility and design incurring additional cost. Therefore, the challenges were unlimited time, resources, and budget to develop detailed pond specifications. And the sustainability teams of the uni role has been facilitating project governance. And Castle Leases identified as another potential location with the upcoming development. Possibility of getting support financially and financial and practical for pond creation as part of biodiversity net gain target. So proposed next steps were meeting with interested students or groups and consultants for Castle Leases project to explore pond inclusion in biodiversity plan. So feel free to reach me out for those who are interested about this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to share something?
Our lovely head of podcast, who I have the absolute pleasure of living with for the last 2 years, asked me really, really nicely if I could say in council that she is uploading first NSR podcast today, and it will be available on Spotify if you would like to listen to it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to share? Okay. Moving on to the next one, which is the open forum. Okay. Yeah. Student housing, what needs to change? I just want to give a little bit of background. So last year, I used to live in a house with 6 other people, absolutely disastrous. It was more like... So the whole situation was that it was rented out to another person, and then it was sublease, so to say, and there were 6 other people in the house. There was no heating most of the time. It was really bad. That's bottom line, it's really bad. Just want to leave it there. I don't want to go into details because it's been a disaster. If I would like to see something change in that, I would like to have an actual baseline of what a student housing should be like at the basic minimum. So if something needs to change in student housing, that's what I would look into. So if anyone has any thoughts or for or against, now's the time. I will open it up to you guys. If anyone wants to go first.
Right. That's about to break another mic. Hello? Okay. Yeah, I do not want to break another mic. I'll just say a few words before I go off for the Hanukkah event. I think the current situation, and I think I want to just speak in that general sense because that's where the SAPs are. I think it's like this housing issue, just to open the discussion, is when I ask my friends, a lot of them is like, what do you want to say? They actually say, actually student union cannot do a lot. You know, we recognize that fact, and then, you know, it's things like, you know, the landlords, there's a renters reform bill coming up. There's also local availability. There's also the increasing number of students. And I think one of the things I just want to point out is, firstly, on the NUSU social media, apart from one video promoting the existing web page on the housing crisis, there's not a lot of information out there. I think that's, again, comes down to a conversation we need to signpost better. Because things like the housing advice page is able to offer advice on guarantors, contract review service, issues with agents. These are all things that the students are telling me that they need. So I'm just wondering how we can signpost that better, and I think it's just promoting on social media. In terms of possible steps, I think firstly is we need to increase the awareness of tenants' rights and we could provide a hub with clearer information on this issue. What are your rights are? I think what Chirag mentioned about having a baseline of what is student housing. That's the first thing. Secondly, this is possible, I think, is to lobby the university to manage student numbers, enrollment to a sustainable level. It is being done in other universities. It's a whole conversation on supply and demand. So if we are able to address that part, I think we should at least try to lobby them on this. Thirdly, university or student union accreditation of landlords and letting agents. This is not impossible either, because in the NUS document on the housing crisis published in 2023, they mentioned this. So I think that's one thing we can do. And then something that's done by the University College of London, extend hardship funding towards accommodation deposits, rent payments, subsistence costs, and also childcare fares. So I think that's another thing we can explore. And then I think just finally, maybe in the future conversation with MPs, of which I was part of last week, is perhaps, campaign for students to be given statutory rights to bring their tenancies to an early end. I think this is being done in Scotland. And so I think that will give students more freedom and also prevent us from being overcharged or like paying more for overstaying. That's all. Thank you.
1 second, I'm going to go to this lovely person here, if you would still like to talk.
I was just going to say, since first year, the way guarantors are asked, the requirements for guarantors have definitely changed. I was talking to my friend, one of the requirements was that the guarantor had to be a house owner, and also the increase of how much the guarantor has to receive in a year has increased as well. And I know there's websites and associations that you can get My Guarantors and things like that, but most of the time you have to pay for things like that, which just makes the whole process of getting a house way harder for students. And I don't know if I'm not seeing the guarantor section on the student use website yet, but if there's any sections for maybe the university themselves being some sort of guarantor association to help with that, or I don't know, just something to kind of balance the playing field in that sense, because we're already working with rising prices and things like that, but then the fact that a lot of people can't physically get a house now, especially because a lot of us, they don't work hard enough, don't work enough to not need a guarantor for a house as well.
Okay. So one of the things we're doing actually is we're working with the other regional student unions to create a joint manifesto. So some of you might be aware that we're going to have a mayor of the North East from next year. So there'll be elections in May. So we're working with the other regional SUs to develop a joint manifesto, and we're also planning on hosting a mayoral debate as well to quiz all the candidates on this. So I think the feedback you provide to us tonight would be really helpful, particularly in terms of shaping this joint manifesto, so that we can influence the mayoral elections. And the new mayor of the North East of England will also have powers over housing as well. So the more feedback we get, we can relay this feedback back to all the candidates as well, so that they can have the biggest impact in terms of improving housing for students. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got a lot of things to say about the current housing market, and most of them aren't very polite, so I don't think I'm allowed to say it at council. But something in particular I've found a lot of issues with this year is finding wheelchair accessible housing. So Essentially, if you want like fully, if you're a wheelchair user who needs, hello, sorry, is the mic all right? All right. Do you want me to just project while you sort that out? Can you still hear me? Yeah, okay. So essentially, for those of you who don't know, as a student, if you're a wheelchair user, your only real options for fully adapted accommodation, should you need this, would be living in Parkview for your entire degree, which is unsustainably expensive and not very nice. Getting council housing, which isn't feasible for everyone, and it's a bit of a, like, it's luck-based a lot of the time from what I've heard, or buying your own house and adapting it yourself, which isn't an option. Like, there just aren't adapted houses available on the renting market, and there aren't even that many accessible houses available on the renting market. I mean, just a few weeks ago, I was basically told by a landlord, no, you're not allowed to rent here because I'm not putting down a ramp that'll decrease the property value. Again, I have a lot of strong words to say about this. I don't think I'm allowed to say them in council. Yeah, essentially wheelchair accessible housing, absolute nightmare. And it puts a lot of disabled students in really difficult situations.
Anybody else? Oh,
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to echo everything that was just said about the guarantor situation. I think that's quite discriminatory against a lot of people that don't have family either living in the UK or emancipated students, or just anybody that doesn't really have too much contact with family in general. Because you either pay all your rent upfront or you're not allowed to rent, which I just think is quite a wild concept for students. And not only do you need a guarantor in second and third year when you're living outside of student accommodation, I'm pretty sure you need one in first year as well, which surely at this point, when there's this many international students and this many kind of students with that kind of don't have any connection to family or working class students, that's not a sustainable thing to be doing. Also, in regards to first year accommodation, you're kind of just assigned accommodation based on what's available, which is quite discriminatory against people that maybe can't afford certain accommodations that they just get assigned. You're not guaranteed, while an ensuite and whatever would be nice, a lot of the time that's not a feasible thing for you to pay for when you're in first year. So I think, I'm not sure if that's an SU thing or if it's a uni thing directly, but I think just kind of liaising with university accommodation and yeah.
Any more for any more?
Yeah, I think also with housing, I think, which we've all like really lobbied the university on, is like the quality of student housing as well. Like, I know, like literally last week I had so much mold in my house and my landlord just painted over it. I think there's like the quality of student housing is so bad, and on top of all the crisis with the like lack of affordable housing and the quality as well, I think it's just abysmal. But Nottingham University have collaborated with, both Nottingham universities have collaborated with their council to make a living strategy, which is supposed to like tackle all the issues with like student housing, but with student neighbourhoods as well. And that's something that we're really trying to push to the university, is kind of getting all of your thoughts across and all that feedback and opinions, and really trying to make them understand that this is such a big student issue, because in their eyes, I think it's something that they don't think is that important. But yeah, that's just something we're trying to do.
Thank you very much, Lucy. Just to remind people that when we're discussing student housing, there are some things that we would like to really keep it as it is, which include keeping the rent low. So if you guys have any thoughts on what needs to change but also doesn't, you can also bring that up.
I can do you first and you, because that's just the order. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah, okay. So I have not been in council long enough to know what the vocabulary is or is not allowed yet. So I'll be as mundane as humanly possible. I came across a rather odd situation when looking at the View, where it was one price around 2 days ago, and then a friend of mine received an email just yesterday, saying that they suddenly increased the prices of rooms there. I'm not sure if the student union can do anything about it. I'm just bringing it up because it sounds extremely dumb and redundant that they suddenly just increased the price when there was limited rooms as people were booking it up quickly. I understand capitalism, but that's just insane. Yeah.
I think something in terms of what needs to change. Housing cooperatives, I'd like to see most of that, more of them. Edinburgh has been very, very successful in setting up a student housing cooperative. My partner lives in there right now. Basically, they run everything themselves. They can keep their rent just low enough to keep their housing running because there's no landlord taking the money off them. Obviously, things like this come with issues. I know there's been attempts to set up other housing cooperatives in other parts of the country, and Edinburgh is sort of the biggest and most successful one. But I'd like to see more of that, not just in Newcastle, but in general, housing cooperatives.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming, everyone. Just to remind, you can get your a drink tokens from Connor, and
Our Festival of Culture. Oh, is that on? Oh no, I've taken it off. I'm so sorry. Our Festival of Culture Hanukkah event is on. It has started. It's in the Daniel Wood room. There's free tea and coffee, and if you stay through the presentation, there will be donuts. There are donuts, but you can't eat them unless you see the presentation. Thank you.
thank you so much for coming, everyone. Council has officially ended.